this is going to get me into some trouble, possibly. This particular video has a little bit of a danger of poison within the community. And I will title it, I think, I Am a White Man, which is a accident of birth, if nothing else. And when I say this, it isn't something that I've dwelled upon too much in my life. As a matter of fact, I've never really considered myself to be a white man until other people have labeled me to be something like that from outside. And when I go out and I fill out a job application a few years ago, this only came along possibly halfway through my life. On the back of the application, they have these things that you have to check. It says ethnicity, and then it has Hispanic, uh, Asian, black/African, and then there's one that says white/Caucasian, and then there's another one that says other. And I've always was tempted to just check other, you know, but I wanted the job, and I figured if I did that, they would just think I was being silly, and they wouldn't hire me. So I have to, like, all right, now they're labeling me, now they're pigeonholing me. I'm gonna check white, Caucasian, and then I gotta check male, and these classifications were thrust upon me by somebody else on the outside, and they want to put me into a label. And nowadays, the male female thing, they're trying to expand that to be bisexual, transgender, male, female, I don't know. But everything is, they're looking at me and they're labeling me to be something. And I guess from the outside looking in, I would have to consider myself to be a white male, which, I never really thought about that very much until sort of recently. I mean, the whole idea of being a man, when I first was brought up to this was when I was about 21. I used to hang out with this guy that I worked with in this factory. We did all the hard physical labor in this factory, and we both worked second shift. And he and I used to go out after work driving around, and hanging out. And he happened to be a black guy about my age, and we used to ride around in his Cadillac and go all through the city and everything. And he was the third-rate philosopher, just like me. And he said things like to me that I'm always thinking on what it is to be a man, he says. Don't you? And I was like, huh? I never gave that a second's thought in my entire life, what it is to be a man. He says, I'm always thinking on that, he says, what it is to be a man. And, I don't know I didn't know what he meant. I mean, I guess in certain cultures, they have a rite of passage in order to become a man. Like in the Maasai's, I think, in Africa, you have to kill a lion with a spear to be considered a man. And if you don't do that, they consider you lunch, I suppose. But there's also bar mitzvahs in the Jewish community. But, that's just something, to me, I've always considered that to be something like the accident of birth. I happen to be a human being. I'm not a frog. I'm not a mosquito. I'm a human being, and I also happen to be male, which is kind of a freak. Males are freaks in comparison with females. I mean, they're missing a quarter of a chromosome, I guess, from the 23rd pair, and if you look at most of the birth defects and the physical problems and the mental problems that occur more often occur in males than they do in females. And, the psychosis is more common, and all the weirdness comes out in the male because he's sort of a mutated woman is what they are. But that's just the accident of birth, right? I was a human being. I'm over 21 and I have testicles. Therefore, I'm a man. Now, as far as being white goes, I'm not white. I'm white is like this is white. That's white. Did you ever see a person in your life that was that color? I don't think so. Maybe some albinos might be that color, but not really. That's about as white as can be. And I'm more like a beige color. I'm not white. But since I have to be, other people look at me and they see me, they say, you're white. You're a man. You're a white man. And, in this day and age, unfortunately, being a white man means that you have a target on your head, You're the enemy. You're the bad guy. I mean, that's the way it is these days. And, I don't understand that either. I mean, the white men have, what percentage of the population of the world is white man? It's about, I looked it up, it's a little less than 5% of the world's population are white men. Now, in the United States, where I live, it's probably more like 35 to 40% of the population are white men, and then there are 40% are white women. But white men are really a minority in the world. And somehow we are supposed to be feeling something like white privilege, which is a new thing that I've never heard of that till very recently. I am not privileged. I know this might sound a little, I don't know, self-serving, but I do not think of myself as privileged in any way. I've very roughly scrounged by in my life. I've been working since I was 16, and I have had to go to public assistance once or twice in my life as I was down and out, laid off of work, doing whatever I can, whatever job I could find, and doing it as many hours as I possibly could. I don't feel any privilege whatsoever. There's no exactly privilege. They haven't made me the president of anything or the boss of anything. I'm just some guy trying to make ends meet throughout my entire life. And, it's privileged, no. And the white guilt, I have none of that. Not a single one of my ancestors lived in the United States until after the Civil War. So I don't think I should have to pay reparations for any slavery. I mean, as if you had to hold the children responsible for their father's crimes. That's a thing that exists in some parts of the world. A man goes out and commits a crime and then he dies. Then they arrest his children and throw his children in jail for the crime that he committed. Well, that is not an American way to do things. That's un-American. I am not going to feel white guilt. And as far as being male, this is something that recently I've run into, and I have a daughter that goes to school in college, a pretty good college, and she, when I was visiting her recently, started on to me about, oh, you have that toxic masculinity, she says. The first time I heard that expression were two women discussing their husband and rolling their eyes. I call that toxic masculinity. It was a joke, Now it's a thing they're teaching in college. Toxic masculinity, as if masculinity were some kind of a disease or as if it were taught to me. Now, I don't know. I grew up in a family, there were 6 boys, and we were raised in a guy's kind of world. Nobody's ever said to me, oh, this is what it is to be a man, or this is what it is to be a boy. If I am in any way masculine, I believe it's mostly a genetic thing, I mean, people don't have to say, oh, you're faking it. I don't think I'm masculine at all. I just happen to be masculine acting to some other people's perceptions. I'm not really... Toxic masculinity is an attack on me as a human being. And then it upset me when my daughter said that to me because, she's being indoctrinated in this latest concepts about, the. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to inflict a sort of a censorship upon people's speech and understanding in the world today by attacking those who they see as the positions of authority. And I understand it seems to be like a cultural thing for us to attack the high positions of authority. It's called anti-disestablishmentarianism, right? And what you do is you go after the big guy, you go after the boss. And most of the bosses are white men over the years. I understand that. But, maybe it's a better idea to cherish the white men of the world. Because, look at most of the people in the history of the world who have brought us into the modern world and helped to develop philosophy and technology and all that. They're all mostly, not all, but 90% to 95% were white men. 5% of the population of the world is white men. Take a look. I just made a list of some of these guys. Let's see. There's Democritus, who was the guy who first came up with the atoms theory. Homer, Socrates, Aristotle, Leonardo da Vinci, Leeuwenhoek, who invented lenses and microscopes, Gutenberg, who invented the printing press, Galileo, Copernicus, Jesus, Isaac Newton, Shakespeare, Adam Smith, John Locke, Euclid, James Maxwell, Jensen, who cured smallpox, Louis Pasteur, who saved half the people on Earth who are alive because of Louis Pasteur. Let's see, there's Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Charles Darwin. There's Gregor Mendel, and Watt, and Thomas Edison. There's Alexander Graham Bell, Carl Benz, Karl Marx, Marconi, Orville, and Wilbur Wright, invented airplanes. Einstein, Max Planck. There's also Jonas Salk, that Robert Goddard invented rockets. Henry Ford, Werner von Braun, Watson and Crick. Alexander Fleming invented penicillin. The Mayo guy who cured yellow fever. There's also Jean Rousseau and Voltaire and Remington and Buckminster Fuller and Tesla. There's Thomas Edison, Bertrand Russell, Immanuel Kant, Hegel, Nietzsche. There's Rene Descartes, Robert Boyle, Antonia Leeuwenhoek, the guy with the electromagnetic, Max Planck. These are the white guys in history who invented almost the cures for all the diseases that were wiping out most of humanity, invented the car, the airplane, the electricity, television, radio, Marconi with the radio. White men, all white men, and somehow now we're supposed to be ashamed of being white men. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to say this, and I tried to say this earlier. I don't consider myself to be a white man. I consider myself to be me, a person, me, and not any type of person, just me. For somebody to come out and say I should be ashamed of being a white man, I'm just me. And for that matter, the people who are liberals, I am a liberal. I try to be anyway. Liberalism was invented by, John Locke and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and Abraham Lincoln. They all were the ones who wrote in to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, said all people, no matter of race, creed, color, or national origin, should be treated equally under the law. So, what I say is, if you're a white guy and you feel like you're superior, that's not a good thing either. So, thank you.